真的从来都没有想过，国庆期间居然被裁员了。
Today, I thought it would be a relaxed and pleasant day, but unexpectedly, I encountered layoffs at this moment. I, once known as general manager and by everyone, am no longer that person. As a graduate of a 985 university, my monthly salary used to be around 28,000 yuan. This year marks my 5th year of deep involvement in the internet industry. Over these years, I have worked overtime almost every day, with takeout becoming the staple of my life. Today is my 1,753rd day working at the company. I excitedly went to the boss's office, planning to discuss a promotion and raise, but unexpectedly, the boss suddenly told me to hand over my project to my apprentice, along with the entire team management responsibility. Worse yet, the boss decided to cut my salary directly to 3,000 yuan, which, to put it bluntly, is essentially sidelining me. All of this happened just after I crossed the threshold of 35. I still have a child at home who is just over 1 year old, and I suddenly found myself in a situation with no income. The fixed expenses every month, like mortgage, car loan, utility bills, and daily expenses, all these pressures suddenly feel like they are crushing me. Middle age leaves me no choice. I have elderly parents at home and a child needing care. The burden of life has left me feeling overwhelmed. As I get older, my stamina is no longer what it used to be, and I can't stay up late working like young people. In fact, my apprentice has indeed performed outstandingly on the project, with extraordinary talent. That's the reality, and in the end, I was laid off by the company. Despite all this, I don't want to stay stuck in disappointment. After thinking it over for a long time, I decided not to be negative anymore. Life must go on, and I need to face the challenges ahead more proactively. I have accumulated many years of experience in the internet field, and this is still the area I excel in. Therefore, I decided to continue looking for other opportunities in this industry.
我被厂里面解雇了，厂里面不要我了。
I was fired by the factory. They no longer want me there. Looking back at my time in this factory, I have been working here ever since it started production last year, for a year and a half now. I didn't expect that recently, the factory would suddenly let me go. I want to first explain the background of this situation to everyone. Here's what happened. Just after the National Day holiday ended, the factory needed to rush an order of coats. The task was extremely urgent, so I worked overtime to meet the deadline and finished 2 sizes of coats. I worked hard until last night, and after dinner, I finally completed my task. I went to find our team leader and told him that my task was done, asking what style of clothing I should work on next. I also mentioned that I hadn't taken a break on National Day, so I wanted to take the opportunity to rest for one night shift. The next morning, I arrived at the factory on time, ready to start a new task. I went to ask our team leader what style we would work on today, but he didn't assign me any new tasks. I remembered that there were still about a dozen pieces of clothing that needed reworking in the factory, so I continued to work on the rework. While I was busy, a quality inspector came over and told my mentor that there were too many clothes requiring rework. I thought to myself, which factory doesn't have rework tasks? It's a very normal thing. So, I finished the rework and handed the clothes to my mentor. I saw that my mentor was also very busy, managing other workers. After he finished his tasks, I asked him again what style I should work on. He gave me a surprising answer: there are too many reworks. This left me confused, because doing clothes inevitably involves reworks, and once they're done, it's not an issue. I didn't understand what the problem was. What shocked me even more was his next sentence: the factory manager wants to see you. I thought, why would the factory manager call for me today? It was really strange. I hurried to find the factory manager, and it turned out that all he wanted was for me to check the accounts, hand them over to finance, and that was it. The accounts included my 2 days of work this month and last month's earnings. After checking the accounts, he asked me to pack up my tools and leave the factory. Looking back, I still can't figure out what went wrong. Did I do something wrong? Could you all help me analyze this? I'm not saying that just because I left this factory, I won't find another job. In the garment industry, as long as you have the skills, you can take your toolkit, your rice bowl, and your water cup, and work anywhere. But this situation really leaves me feeling unsatisfied. I didn't rest during the National Day holiday, and I worked overtime for the benefit of the factory. After rushing to finish the order, I just wanted to take one night off, and the next day when I showed up for work, I was fired. I've worked in this factory for a year and a half, and I've never encountered anything like this. Do you think this is my fault, or the factory's fault? The boss has money, of course, and can make you work or leave as they please. But I've never seen a boss treat employees like this. Every time there's a rush order, I work on it, and I didn't even rest during National Day. After just one night's rest, I was treated like this, and honestly, it makes me angry. I really feel this situation is very unfair. Could you help me figure out if it's my fault or the factory's problem?
今天我被裁员了。
This afternoon, at around 4 o'clock, the company officially notified me that I had been laid off. The leader told me that my name was on the layoff list in our department. After hearing the news, I went out to buy a cup of milk tea, and when I returned to the company, I signed the termination notice with HR. We briefly discussed the compensation issue, but since I had already been notified a month in advance, before September 30th, there will be no additional compensation, meaning I am receiving much less than I could have. In fact, the company has been talking about layoffs for a year now, and although I had already been thinking about leaving, the moment I officially received the news today, I still felt pretty upset. As for why I was laid off, the company's official reason was poor business performance. However, I know the real reason is because my work overlapped with the leaders, and the boss likely thought it was unnecessary to keep two people doing similar jobs, so they cut one of us. Besides, I've noticed that most of the employees being laid off are women. Although it's unpleasant, the fact is set, and I can only face it calmly. After receiving the compensation, I plan to rest at home for a month. However, my feelings are complicated. I can't help but feel a sense of helplessness and unease.
真的是风水轮流转。
Life is truly unpredictable. I am 40 years old this year. For the past 16 years I have been working in HR, but now I am unemployed. A few days ago I applied for many jobs online, and finally 2 companies notified me that I could attend interviews today. Looking back, I worked in HR outsourcing for 16 years, serving nearly 3,000 employees, but the companies I interviewed with today have at most 50 employees. To be honest, I do not have a bias against small companies. It's just that the number of employees directly affects my salary level and benefits, which is a reality I must consider. During the interview today, I competed with several young women born in the 1990s. After the interview, one company directly told me that they thought I was too old and rejected me. Another company asked me to wait for a notification. This stark contrast left me feeling helpless. Is it true that at the age of 40 women are simply rejected in the workplace? This reality makes me feel sad and confused. Despite my extensive experience and professional skills, I face such significant obstacles because of my age.
被裁员了，跟公司足足抗争了2个多月。
I was laid off after fighting with the company for more than 2 months, but I ultimately couldn't avoid being dismissed. After work, I cried for a long time. What saddens me is not the job itself, but the fact that I dedicated 15 years of my youth to this company, and the ending is so bleak. I am 38 years old, graduated from a 211 university with a major in financial management. After graduation, I worked as an accountant at this company, which paid for my social security. To enhance my skills, I worked while studying and obtained a mid-level accountant certificate, and my salary gradually increased. I once thought I could work here until retirement, but I never expected the company's performance to plummet in the last 2 years. The management forced older employees to resign voluntarily through various means, frequently changing positions or cutting salaries. The company always found various excuses to make me leave, claiming that I left work right at the end of my shift and that not working overtime was a problem. My child is already 10 years old this year, and I need to supervise his studies, so how could I possibly work overtime until 10 p.m. every day and neglect my child? Therefore, the company used this reason to continuously make things difficult for me. In July of this year, my salary was reduced to 60% of what it was before. I thought I would just hold on for now until I found a suitable job because I wanted to both work and take care of my child, which also limited my career development. However, until now, I still haven't found a suitable opportunity. Now, the company has clearly informed me that I must complete the resignation procedures by the end of the month. At 38 years old, I find myself at a crossroads in life, and the future feels incredibly uncertain. Do companies really not want older women anymore?
28岁已婚未育突然通知被裁了。
I am 28 years old, married but without children. Today, I suddenly received a layoff notice, and it felt like I was watching a drama unfold, even more dramatic than the plots on TV. In fact, some time ago, rumors about layoffs had already been circulating in the company. At that time, it was said that after the National Day holiday, the layoff list would be announced. However, during the 2.5 days after we returned to work from the holiday, everything went on as usual, with no signs of layoffs. Everyone was speculating whether the layoff notice would be postponed further. Until last Friday at 3 in the afternoon, our office area suddenly lost all internet connection. At first, I thought this was just a regular network issue. I was thinking to take advantage of it to slack off and wait for the end of the workday. From past experiences, network failures often take some time to resolve. Not long after, a friend sent me a message on WeChat, informing me of what he knew. A colleague from a department he knew had just been told by their leader that those not on the layoff list could leave immediately, while those on the list would have to wait for HR to notify them to go to the meeting room for a discussion. In that moment, I realized that the previous network outage might not have been coincidental, but a preparation for the upcoming layoffs. More than an hour after my friend informed me of this, we still had not received the layoff notice, and our top leader was absent from their desk. Everyone started joking that perhaps the leaders were holding an emergency meeting, and that they might come back with the layoff list. By 4:30, a few female colleagues and I were still discussing that today would likely not see any layoffs, as it was almost time to leave work, and they wouldn't conduct layoffs during overtime. However, just after I said this, within 5 minutes, our top leader returned. Upon entering, he hurriedly called a few subordinate leaders into the meeting room. A colleague happened to pass by the meeting room and told us that the door was tightly shut, and they couldn't hear what was happening inside. At this point, everyone understood that they were discussing layoffs. Soon, a subordinate leader returned, looking very somber. He told us that 2 colleagues had been named in the meeting and softly added, "You can go home now." At this moment, all of us who were not named clearly understood. Although we had been mentally prepared for this, when the moment actually arrived, my feelings were extremely complex, and one thought dominated my mind. I was laid off. It felt like being in a long-term relationship, ready to step into marriage, only to be suddenly abandoned. Everything happened so abruptly that there was no time to think before being notified to gather in the meeting room for discussions with HR. On the way to the meeting room, I kept telling myself to stay calm, not to get emotional, and to remember to record the conversation. I needed to think about what to ask in order to reasonably fight for my interests and compensation. But it turned out that these thoughts were unnecessary. The layoff situation was entirely different from what I had read in online guides. In fact, my technical leader did not come to discuss anything with me, nor did I have a one-on-one negotiation with HR. The scale of this layoff was massive. I didn't know exactly how many people were laid off, but from our department's perspective, at least more than half of the female colleagues were let go, and there was simply no time for individual discussions. We entered the meeting room in batches, and HR read the layoff notice uniformly. He explained the reasons for the layoffs, the compensation amount, and how annual leave would be calculated, among other matters. The entire process went very smoothly, and the details of the compensation were clearly stated in each person's labor contract termination agreement. After confirming that my compensation amount and the termination agreement were correct, I signed the document and left. As I walked out of the meeting room, the only 2 words in my mind were relief. I was finally free from the daily anxiety and turmoil surrounding the layoffs. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of lightness. Although I might face some anxiety in the future about finding a new job, the immediate relief was indescribable. After returning to my work area from the meeting room, my work card was collected, and within 2 hours, I had become unemployed. Who would have thought that on the day of the layoff, I wouldn't even need to hand over my work or return company property? The company said they would handle it all. This rapid processing made me feel like I was dreaming, yet it was real. Over the past few days, I have reflected on everything, and through self-digestion, I realized that perhaps this layoff isn't a bad thing. It gave me a chance to start anew. If I had stayed at the company, it might have only led to self-consumption and repeated struggles. This experience has given me an opportunity to re-examine my future plans. Although the current environment is relatively difficult, if you have a stable job, it's advisable to hold on unless absolutely necessary. If, like me, you find yourself laid off, try not to be overly anxious and worried. It's very important to prepare in advance. Mastering some basic labor knowledge, such as how to calculate severance pay, how to claim unemployment benefits, and how to pay for flexible employment insurance, will help you better cope with future challenges. After all, not every company can part ways with employees in a dignified manner.
Why should women face prejudice in job hunting? This has been a problem troubling women across China for many years. We must acknowledge that absolute equality does not exist in the real world, especially in the workplace, where there has always been a disparity in treatment between men and women. According to relevant data, 61.2% of women are asked about their marital and childbearing status during job interviews, while this proportion is only 21.5% among men. Moreover, nearly 40% of women state that marital and childbearing issues can affect their career development. In reality, the issue of gender discrimination faced by women in the workplace has been long-standing. Questions about marital status during interviews impose additional pressure on unmarried women. For instance, interviewers may inquire about their relationship progress, worrying that they might get married soon after joining the company. For married women without children, there is concern that they may plan to get pregnant once they start working. Meanwhile, married women with children are often perceived as less focused on their jobs because their minds might be preoccupied with family matters. A case where a 27-year-old female programmer was offered a job but had her offer rescinded the next day after being asked about her wedding plans attracted widespread attention. For many women, pregnancy and childbirth are unavoidable processes. Even for seasoned employees who have worked for years in a company, once they become pregnant, they may face significant changes in their position and salary, or even be pressured into accepting a pay cut or resigning. Some individuals return to their jobs after having children only to find their workstations occupied by others. When they try to re-enter the workforce, they often feel marginalized, and the company's intentions are evident. Furthermore, inequality in the workplace is also reflected in salaries. According to data from China's recruitment market, the average salary for women in 2024 is 8,689 yuan per month, while the average salary for men is 9,942 yuan. The salary gap between working mothers and working fathers is even more pronounced, with the average salary for working mothers in 2023 being 9,315 yuan, while working fathers earn an average of 12,534 yuan per month. This clearly indicates that the decline in women's willingness to give birth is not without reason. After all, women face not only physical challenges during childbirth, but also the risk of losing their jobs. Thus, absolute equality between men and women in the workplace remains a distant ideal. How do you view companies' reluctance to hire modern women? We welcome your comments, as I would love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to provide you with better programs. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.